A mother and her adult daughter stand together for a family photo. A stranger scrolling through later genuinely can't tell which woman is 45 and which is 22. Not because of lighting or angles, just muscle and posture. That's not an anti-aging miracle. It's the direct, measurable result of one training principle almost no woman over 40 is taught to use. Do you train like your body is working against you now, or like it just needs different instructions? There's a real, mechanical reason some women's bodies stop looking 40 the way everyone expects. And it starts with one adjustment most of us never make. Keep watching, and you'll have that adjustment by the end of this video. Welcome to Iron Femme, a channel that helps women build strength that shows up everywhere. In the gym, in your career, in your voice, in your life. No shrinking, no apologizing, no training light. We lift heavy, we stand tall, we take up space. Physique, mindset, presence, all of it. If you want to be stronger in every room you walk into, you are in the right place. That photo gets sent around the family group chat, and someone always asks the same question. Wait, which one's the mom? Nobody's being unkind. They just genuinely can't tell. Here's what's easy to miss in that moment. The daughter isn't doing anything special. 22-year-old bodies mostly take care of themselves. The mother is the one doing something unusual, because at 45, unusual is required to get a body that reads that way. Two women can share the exact same genetics, the exact same childhood dinner table, the exact same bone structure, and 20 years later, one of them still moves and looks like the photo could have been taken at 30. The other doesn't. That gap isn't written in DNA. It's written in one decision, repeated for years, that most women never make because nobody tells them it's necessary. Most of us assume the mother in that photo just takes care of herself. Better diet, more discipline, maybe some luck. That explanation feels true, and it's almost entirely wrong. Diet matters. Discipline matters. But neither one explains why some 45-year-old bodies hold shape and strength the way a 22-year-old's does by default. There's a specific mechanical reason. It has nothing to do with willpower, and it's not a secret. It's just something almost nobody over 40 is actually taught to do differently than they did at 25. That's where this actually starts. Here's the part that doesn't get explained. After 40, the body changes how it allocates resources. Estrogen decline shifts the body toward easier fat storage and slower muscle protein synthesis, meaning the exact same training and eating habits that maintained a body at 30 will, at 45, produce a different result. Not because something's broken, because the rules changed and the training didn't. This is the mechanism behind the photo. The daughter's body responds to almost any reasonable input. A few classes a week, decent eating, done. The mother's body doesn't get that same deal anymore. If her training stayed identical to what it was in her 20s, her result would look identical to every other 45-year-old who did the same thing. Soft, smaller, tired. It doesn't, because her training didn't stay identical. Muscle after 40 requires a stronger, more specific stimulus to grow or even maintain. What's often called anabolic resistance. The body needs more mechanical tension, more progressive load, and more targeted protein intake to produce the same muscle protein synthesis response it used to get from far less. Women who don't know this keep doing what worked at 30, get diminishing results, and conclude their body changed for the worse. Their body didn't betray them. Their training just stopped matching what their body now requires. This is the actual study behind every version of that family photo moment. It's not that some women's bodies hold on to muscle better. It's that some women adjusted the input to match the new biological cost. And most women didn't know there was a new cost to account for in the first place. That gap between the old routine and what the body now actually needs is the entire explanation. And it shows up as one specific mistake, repeated by almost every woman who's ever looked at a well-preserved 45-year-old and assumed it was luck. Here's the mistake, and it's almost always the same one. Observation. She's doing largely what she did in her 20s and 30s. Cardio a few times a week, light weights for toning, maybe a class or two. It felt like enough then. It feels reasonable now. Study. The problem is that light weights for toning was never actually a muscle-building stimulus, even at 25. It just didn't need to be, because a younger body's baseline hormonal environment did enough of the work on its own. After 40, that free assistance drops off. The same light routine that used to produce a passable result now produces a slow, steady decline, because nothing in the training is signaling the body to hold on to or build muscle under a harder biological environment. Specific example: a woman doing 3-pound dumbbell curls and 30 minutes of incline walking 4 times a week for years. She's consistent, she's disciplined, and she's frustrated because none of it is changing how she looks anymore, while it used to. Signal: her body isn't failing to respond to effort. It's responding exactly the way a body should respond to a stimulus that's too light to matter. That's not decline. That's a body that would absolutely respond to something more specific. This is the mistake almost every woman in that invisible after 40 conversation is actually making. Not lack of effort. Mismatched effort. The routine never adjusted for the new cost of building or keeping muscle. The fix isn't more hours in the gym. It's a different kind of input entirely, which is exactly what separates her from the version of herself in that family photo. The fix has 2 non-negotiable components, and neither one is complicated. Progressive overload. Resistance training at least 3x per week, using weights heavy enough that the last 2 to 3 reps of each set are genuinely difficult. Not light weights for toning, actual working sets in the 6-12 rep range across major compound movements. Squats, deadlifts, rows, presses. The load needs to increase over time. If the same weight has felt the same for 3 months, the stimulus stopped working 3 months ago. Protein specificity. Roughly 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight daily, distributed across 3 to 4 meals rather than backloaded into dinner. Muscle protein synthesis in women over 40 responds to distribution, not just total intake. A huge dinner doesn't make up for 3 protein light meals earlier in the day. Here's the this versus that explains the whole gap. The old way is lightweight, high reps, cardio dominant, protein as an afterthought. The new way is heavier compound lifts, planned progressive load, and protein treated as a daily non-negotiable rather than a diet phase detail. This isn't about training harder in the sense of more hours. It's training differently in the sense of the right stimulus. A 45-year-old woman doing 45 minutes of properly loaded resistance training 3 GACs a week will out-transform a woman doing 5 hours of cardio and light toning classes weekly. This is the actual mechanism behind the photo. It was never about some women's bodies just hold up better. It's 2 specific, learnable adjustments: heavier resistance training and properly distributed protein applied consistently over time. Back to the photo. The mother in that group chat wasn't gifted a 22-year-old's body. 5 years earlier, she was doing exactly what most women do: light dumbbells, regular cardio, protein as an afterthought. Same story as almost everyone. What changed wasn't effort level. She was already showing up consistently. What changed was the input. She started lifting heavier, actual working sets, not toning reps. She started tracking protein and spreading it across her day instead of hoping dinner would cover it. Nothing dramatic. No 5 a.m. boot camps. No extreme diet. 18 months in, the results weren't subtle anymore. Not smaller. Different. Different shoulders, different posture, different presence in a photo. The same woman who used to blend into 40-something mom photos became the one people had to double-check the age of. That's the entire mechanism. That played out in one real example instead of a statistic. Same starting point as thousands of other women her age. One specific adjustment, sustained long enough for the body to respond to it the way it's actually built to respond. The daughter in that photo didn't do anything unusual. Her body's still getting the free pass that comes with being 22. The mother did something unusual, because at 45, the free pass is gone, and the input has to match that. A few things come up here, and they deserve straight answers, not reassurance. It's too late for me. It's not. Muscle protein synthesis responds to resistance training and adequate protein at any age. The studies on women starting resistance training in their 50s and 60s show meaningful strength and muscle gains within months. Late is a story, not a biological fact. I don't want to get bulky. Building visible muscle mass requires a caloric surplus and years of dedicated heavy training under expert programming. Accidental bulk from lifting a few times a week doesn't happen. What actually happens is what's in that photo: definition, posture, and shape, not size. I don't have time for this. The training itself is 45 minutes, 3 times a week, less time than most cardio-heavy routines already being done, and more effective for this specific outcome. This isn't an additional demand on your schedule. It's a redirection of the time already being spent. None of these are moral failings. They're just outdated assumptions most women over 40 were never given the chance to correct, because toning and cardio for weight loss got marketed as the answer for decades, while the actual mechanism, progressive resistance and protein, stayed a footnote. That photo isn't genetics, and it isn't luck. It's a mother who, at some point, stopped training like she was still 25 and started training for the body she actually had. Heavier lifting, protein that's planned, not hoped for, nothing dramatic, just correctly matched to what her body at her age actually required. The gap between still looks like herself at 22 and looks like every other tired 45-year-old was never about who tried harder. Both women in that photo probably showed up consistently for something. Only one of them showed up for the right input. That's available to you starting this week, not in 6 months, not after some overhaul of your whole life. One adjustment: heavier, progressive resistance work, and protein spread across your day instead of stacked at dinner. If this is the first time anyone's actually explained why 40 changes the math, subscribe. This channel breaks down the mechanics nobody else bothers to. Every week, no fluff. If you want the exact breakdown of how to structure that training week by week, that's exactly what the next video walks through.